Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for inviting me to talk to you today. I'm really excited to be addressing everyone at the Intel-Zinnov Sustainability Conclave. My name is Joe Phelan, and I work for the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and I'm responsible for our work with ambitious companies across Asia and the Pacific. I'll start with a quick explanation of what WBCSD is. So we're a global CEO-led organization made up of more than 200 very large companies, some of the largest companies in the world. And these include technology majors like Microsoft and Fujitsu, SAP and Apple, and also some Indian majors like the Birlas, the Tatas, ITC, Godrej, UPL, and JSW. And what we do is we collaborate with member companies to help them enhance their sustainability performance, to enable them to collaborate in their value chains to create systems change, and also to jointly engage in changing the broader economic system and redefining capital market engagement, so that the environment in which all businesses operate is transformed and capital flows to systems change, and the companies that get it right are recognized and rewarded. I'm going to speak to you today about sustainability and the context that the world is in today, and most importantly, some of the approaches that our members are taking to help to lead through the turmoil that we're in, to speed up transformation, sustainable transformation of the environment in which we operate, and to continue to succeed and thrive as enterprises and in society. So I think we're well aware that the world is more stressed than it has been, and that the crises that we're facing are compiling and adding difficulty to the operating environment. The conflict in Ukraine is having global consequences in terms of its impact on prices and on supply chains. The effects of climate change are being felt more acutely and differently in different geographies, but more acutely and more often. Consistently, social unrest and polarization is making cooperation harder. And on top of all of this, there's a real crunch in terms of a cost of living crisis and the ability of people to meet daily costs, and as enterprises, the ability to engage customers and the amount of disposable income that they have available for goods and services. And each of these crises is tightening the environment in which we're operating. And all of this comes on top of three long-term systemic challenges that we face, and makes it harder to deal with these. And you know, the world of sustainability gets dressed up as a complex one or an agenda that's about everything, but really it's about three priorities: the climate emergency, the alarming loss of nature, and mounting inequality. And these three challenges are interlinked, both in terms of exacerbating each other, but also in terms of where the solutions can be found. And I'd like to speak to you a little bit today about what or ways that businesses could respond to a challenge like this. In this environment, business as usual is not really an option. It's economically risky, it's environmentally dangerous, it's increasingly socially unacceptable, and more it's being legally challenged. And in an environment like this, what's necessary now for businesses is really to transform our ways of operating, our ways of thinking, our ways of understanding our customers, and understanding how we produce and deliver goods and services. So I'm going to build my remarks to you today around a piece of work we've recently completed called Vision 2050, Time to Transform. As I go into this, I think it's worth just spending a couple of minutes just to set the scene and take our focus onto the details on these three challenges I mentioned around climate, nature, and inequality, just so we've all got a common understanding of the scale of the challenge that we faced. First of all, the climate emergency. The science is clear. The current global average temperature increase since pre-industrial levels is already 1.18 degrees. And the worrying thing is that this increase is already having a significant impact. It's impacting people's lives and livelihoods, as well as company bottom lines. And it's not far off the target that was committed to by the world at the Paris Agreement, which is as close to 1.5 degrees as possible. And that's a really important target to keep global warming to that number or under, because after that number, we start experiencing very unpredictable events that can accelerate global warming out of our control. So on climate, the science is clear. We're causing it, and we're experiencing it, and we're very vulnerable. So the science says that climate change causes increasing extreme heat waves, droughts, and flooding. I was in Delhi for 2 months earlier this year, April and May, where temperatures were consistently over 42 degrees. You probably experienced similar things where you are, because these heat waves are increasing all around the world. Alongside it, these cause droughts and then floods. And again, this is an audience today largely in India. We're well familiar with the phenomena of heat waves, droughts, and floods, and understand the consequence of these. What we experience, our ability to cope and adapt to that is crucial. But also, despite current politics, we do live in an interconnected world. And so what our neighbors experience and their ability to adapt and cope to these extreme weather events is also crucial to our own resilience wherever we are in the world. So whether our business has a supply chain across many borders, or we're operating in countries that neighbor borders that are even more vulnerable to climate change than we are, this is an urgent area for attention and action that can't be delayed. Second, in terms of nature, wildlife populations shrank by a staggering 68% between 1970 and 2016, and we're on course to lose 1 million species by 2050. What this translates into is ecosystem services that we understand very well: clean air, fresh water. And these are really under stress. And again, today we're in a virtual environment. We're in India, and we understand very well the challenges of polluted air and water stress. And we understand how our livelihoods, our economies, our health, and our security are completely dependent on a thriving natural world. Over half the world's GDP, $44 trillion of economic value, is at moderate or severe risk due to nature loss. So it's a critical issue for businesses to understand and respond to. And thirdly, mounting inequality. Inequality globally now is at its highest rate since the middle of the 1800s. People are being left behind, people are losing faith in our current system, and social cohesion is breaking down. The richest 1% now own 44% of all global wealth, while the poorest 50% own a mere 2% of global wealth. And inequality is in no one's interest. It's actually a systemic risk for business. It's not in those without, it's not in the interest of the poor, nor is it in the interests of even the very rich. Eventually, the pitchforks come out. It is not sustainable. And what we need is equitable and inclusive growth within nations and between nations if we're to create a more stable and prosperous future. So 3 extremely urgent challenges which are present. These are not theoretical future risks. We're experiencing these today. And I hope that gives you an idea of why these challenges need to be urgently dealt with. Every day, more people understand this because the issues are now impacting many of our everyday lives. But they're not just hitting our news feeds, they're hitting our companies' bottom lines too. And we see that we can't just carry on with business as usual anymore. But we have frameworks that can guide us through these challenges. In Paris in 2015, we set targets to limit global warming to well under 2 degrees. And that same year, the world set a set of goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, which give us a framework, a global, commonly understood framework for sustainable development. And these are really important because they are consistent across borders, they affect everyone, and they cover all aspects of development, not only climate change, but also economic prosperity and protecting nature within that. Now, again, coming back to where we are today, it's important to understand that these global trends, really matter in the part of the world that we're in today, and this part of the world is essential to the challenges that we face. There's no sustainable world without sustainability in India or sustainability across this Asia region. And also India and Asia can't succeed without a sustainable world. And global cooperation is under greater stress than it's been at any time in my lifetime, but it's urgently needed. And again, it's really important that we remember that India is among the most vulnerable countries to climate change, and it also should absolutely be a source of innovation and solutions that can work not only for India but for all geographies. So, with all that said, let me come back to this paper that we have produced on Vision 2050 and Time to Transform, and how that can be a guide for you in the companies that you're involved in running. So, when we have the Sustainable Development Goals and we have the Paris Agreement with a goal for climate, why do we need a vision? Well, it's really important that that as business, we have a view of the world that relates to what we do as businesses, and that we can see ourselves in, so that we can transition our mindsets from a VUCA world to one where we have visibility of what's going on, where we have understanding of the challenges that we face, where we get clarity around the steps that are needed to be taken, and we move from ambiguity to agility in terms of our responses and the partnerships that we form and how we take this agenda forward. And the most important thing to understand, and this is my key message, is that for business, sustainability is really just about running companies well into the future. It's about taking steps to safeguard future business success, and it's about taking steps to seize new opportunities to succeed and grow in the future. And with that in mind, we focused our work not just on the transformations that we believe business can and needs to drive in the world, but also to set out how transformation actually happens. And if you take time to visit our website, Time to Transform, you'll see a lot of resources that are freely available for you. What all of this comes down to is a shared vision, which is a global vision for businesses to contribute to a world where more than 9 billion people live well and live within planetary boundaries. And we've defined what that means. We've set out 5 key features of what it means to live well, where everyone's dignity and rights are respected and basic needs are met. And we've also defined 8 key features of what living within planetary boundaries means. So it's around climate and also nature. Living beyond those boundaries is not sustainable and is already impacting the quality of our life. Our work sets out an agenda for transformation of 9 systems, from connectivity to energy, water and sanitation to living spaces, health and well-being, products and materials, food, transport, and mobility. And so at the heart of how transformation happens is a change in our mindsets. And we're talking about the mindsets that govern how businesses make decisions. We need to shift the way that we think about 3 critical areas. First of all, we need to reinvent the purpose of businesses in society and how we measure business success, so that economic activity no longer needs to involve a lot of negative outcomes. Secondly, we need to rethink what it means to be resilient in the long term and understand that resilience is about adapting to a world that's always changing, not desperately trying to protect the status quo. And lastly, we need to think as businesses how we can operate regeneratively rather than destructively, understanding that future business success depends on thriving communities to trade with and a healthy planet for us all to exist on. And if mindsets are about justifying action, then systems thinking is about turning action into transformational change. And yes, business needs to be bold enough, ambitious enough to lead, but business also needs to be humble enough to know that it cannot drive these changes on its own. Transformation will require radical ambition, intent, and effort across businesses and governments throughout economies and societies. It will require systems thinking. And that doesn't just mean understanding the macro trends and innovations that can drive change within a current system. It also means understanding that there are enablers of change that are key to translating actions into impact at societal scale. Innovation, the individuals involved, the investments required, and the incentives and the signals that we create and that we send. So what we have is a unique generation-defining moment. And the reality is that we've moved much closer to critical planetary boundaries and the limits of social cohesion and stability than any of us are comfortable with. And what was an opportunity to be grasped is now a necessity requiring us to act. And we must now all simply get on with it and act. And this is a unique and generation-defining moment. Although there's more work than ever to be done, and it's more urgent than ever that we do it, this may be the best opportunity we've faced in the last 50 years to succeed in unlocking the necessary transformation of our systems. And this moment will define us for generations to come. And I just want to end, we're here at the Intel-Zinnov Sustainability Conclave, and here's a picture of Intel's first 106 employees in California, some 55 years ago, more or less. And I want to speak about entrepreneurialism and disruption and disobedience, because I think these three things are very much linked. So in 1969, the founders of Intel saw an alternative future where semiconductors could transform computing power and in turn transform our lives. And the work begun then disrupted the industry, and that in turn has transformed how all of us across the world experience everything. Entrepreneurialism and disruption is baked into Intel's DNA and into the DNA of all successful companies. An opportunity was spotted, a new approach devised, and through trial and toil, it transformed not just a sector, but culture too. Changing anything takes vision and hard work and disruption, and it takes a bit of disobedience too, a refusal to accept the way things are, and therefore to ignore the accepted rules and instead propose new outcomes. So the message I want to leave you with is that business as usual isn't an option, and the outcomes of business as usual make our challenges worse, not better. So we need a disruption, and I look forward to your successful disruption and the innovation that's going to come from you and the companies that you're involved in now or will be tomorrow. So with that, I'm going to finish. There's a whole lot of resources available on our website. Please do have a look at them and get in touch if you'd like to. Thank you very much.